It was just another day at the small hospital, the kind Elon Musk had visited countless times before. Yet today felt different. The usual buzz of busy nurses, the hurried footsteps of doctors, and the soft murmurs of patients had all faded into a stillness that seemed to hang in the air. Elon couldn't quite explain it, but something about the atmosphere was heavier than usual. Maybe it was the weight of his thoughts, or maybe it was just the quiet acceptance of the people around him, patients, staff, and even himself. He approached the children's wing with a sense of purpose, but also with a growing realization that this visit wasn't going to be just like the others. He had done this countless times, met with kids who looked up to him, inspired by his vision of the future, his dreams of a better world. But today he felt something stir deep inside him, a thought, a feeling he couldn't quite place. He tried to push it aside to focus on the task at hand, but it lingered in the back of his mind. As he entered the room, his eyes immediately landed on the children, their fragile frames sitting quietly in their beds, some with smiles, some with quiet curiosity. They had all heard of him, seen him on TV, maybe even dreamed of riding in one of his rockets. To them, he was a hero, a man who could shape the future, change the world. But today, Elon's heart felt heavier than ever before. This wasn't about changing the world. It was about something deeper, something that couldn't be solved with innovation. Elon forced a smile as he walked toward them. "Hello, everyone," he said, trying to sound as upbeat as possible. "How's everyone doing today?" The room fell silent. The children stared up at him, some unsure of what to say, others wide-eyed in admiration. And then, amidst the quiet, a soft, timid voice broke through. "Mr. Musk." It was a little girl, no more than 6 or 7 years old, her eyes wide and searching. "Can I ask you something?" Elon knelt beside her, his heart squeezing in his chest. She was small, fragile, yet there was a depth in her gaze that was almost unnerving. He smiled gently, giving her the space to speak. "Of course, Lily," he said, his voice softer now. "What's on your mind?" Lily hesitated for a moment, her fingers nervously clutching the edge of her blanket. "I was wondering—" Her voice trailed off, but her eyes never left his. "What happens when we die? Like, do we just stop being here? Or do we go somewhere else?" Elon froze, the question hitting him like a sudden wave of cold water. It was unexpected, jarring. He had spent his life solving problems, creating new worlds, thinking about Mars, the future of humanity, but death? It was a question he had avoided, even though it lingered at the edge of his thoughts from time to time. For a moment, all he could do was blink, trying to find the right words. The room seemed to hold its breath. The other children were watching, waiting. Lily's eyes were wide with innocence and curiosity, and it took all of Elon's strength to maintain his composure. "Well," he began slowly, "that's a really big question. And honestly, there's no one answer. Some people believe that when we die, we go to a better place. Others believe that we live on in different ways, maybe through memories, or even through the things we create." He paused, searching for the right words, but nothing felt adequate. "And some people believe that death is just the end, that when it's over, it's over." Lily's eyes never wavered from his, and for a moment it felt like she was searching his soul for the truth. "But do you think we just disappear?" she asked softly. "Like, are we really gone?" Elon swallowed hard, the question cutting deeper than he anticipated. He had faced so many challenges in his life, but this was different. There was no algorithm to solve, no data to analyze. This was about something raw, something human. "I don't know, Lily," he admitted, his voice faltering. "I really don't know. But I think maybe we don't just disappear. Maybe we become part of everything around us. Maybe we become the stars, the wind, the trees. Maybe we're still here in some way, just in a different form." Lily was silent for a moment, her small face filled with deep contemplation. And then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, but filled with a quiet certainty. "So, we can be stars in the sky? Forever?" Elon looked at her, a lump forming in his throat. There was something so pure about her question, so full of wonder. "Yes, Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Maybe we become stars. Maybe that's the way we live on. Up there, shining bright. Lily smiled, a soft, radiant smile that seemed to light up the whole room. That sounds nice, she said, her voice full of a peace that seemed beyond her years. Elon felt his heart swell with a mixture of awe and sadness. Here was this little girl, full of questions, full of life, asking the kinds of questions that most adults would shy away from. And yet in her simple belief, there was an answer that transcended logic, that reached deep into the heart of what it means to be human. The doctor, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. Lily's been asking about that for a while now, he said with a smile. She's always had a curiosity about space, about the stars, and about what happens after we're gone. Elon nodded, still lost in thought. It's a big question, he said softly, almost to himself. And I don't have all the answers. But sometimes, maybe the questions are more important than the answers. Lily looked up at him, her eyes full of trust. Do you think when I'm a star, I can help people? She asked, her voice filled with hope. Elon's heart tightened at the purity of her question. I think when you're a star, you will help everyone, just by shining, just by being who you are. Lily smiled again, her eyes twinkling with something that was more than just innocence. It was a knowing, a deep understanding of the beauty of life and death, and everything in between. I think that's what I want to be, she whispered. A star, shining for everyone. Elon stood, wiping a tear from his eye, before turning to the doctor. Thank you for letting me meet her, he said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude and something else, something softer, something more vulnerable than he'd ever allowed himself to show. She's reminded me of something important today. The doctor smiled, nodding. What's that? That the answers we're looking for aren't always out there, Elon said, motioning toward the stars. Sometimes they're right here, in the hearts of the people we meet, in the way they see the world. As Elon walked out of the hospital corridor, the echoes of Lily's question continued to resonate in his mind. He had spent so much of his life shaping the future, building Mars, pushing humanity one step further, that sometimes the simple yet profound questions of life were overlooked. So think about it for a second. When someone challenges your worth, whether subtly or directly, how do you respond? Not just in words, but in presence, in energy, in intention. Do you reflect the same energy back? Or do you take a breath, look past the surface, and realize maybe their words say more about them than they ever will about you? It's not about being passive. It's about being rooted. Because when you know who you are, you stop needing to win every battle. You start realizing that not every battle is even yours to fight. Barron didn't change that man's opinion. And maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was to walk away without letting someone else's bitterness write your story. So now I ask you, when the moment comes and you feel the sting of judgment or the pull of anger, will you let it define you? Will you shrink into it or rise above it? Because in the end, it's not the loud reactions people remember. It's the quiet strength, the grace in choosing not to become the very thing you're being accused of. And that's where your real legacy begins. Let's keep the conversation going. Subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts below. Your perspective is valuable and might inspire others.